Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 121 in the series. Welcome back to the Yarn Room. It's lovely to see all of you. Last weekend I popped up an interview with Rachel Ilsley of Unwind Knitwear, so I hope you enjoyed seeing that. And her new pattern just came out. It's a beautiful new colorwork design, so if your curiosity and your interest was piqued by that interview, you should head over and see her new design, which is out. I believe it's out today, actually. So I wasn't sure if I'd make it up to the yarn room to do another video 3 weeks in a row, but here I am. We have a mini blizzard going on outside, so it's a perfect day to kind of stay in and do some fun things around the house, and especially knitting kind of stuff. So I was just knitting an I-cord this morning for a project that I'll show you in a minute, my finished object. I also have a quick shop update for you, and Spencer's going to come on because there's so much going on in the knitting world right now with what's going on in Ukraine and in Europe, so we thought we'd talk a little bit about the ways that the knitting community is coming together to show solidarity for Ukrainians and some of the patterns that have gone up on Ravelry, and yeah, we'll just have a little chat about that. So if you're coming back to the cast, welcome back. And if you're new, this is usually a podcast about knitting garments and garment design, modification, but we do a little bit of everything around here. And I also run the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, which is focused on small batch producers. So small shepherds and farms where there are small flocks of sheep, and they are producing really interesting, often breed-specific yarn. So that's over in the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, and I have a quick update for you on that one. If you're looking for me online, you can find me just about everywhere as knittingthestash.com, and that's where you'll find that Flock Farm Yarn Shop. You'll also find my teachable classes over there as well. So I have a beginning modification class, and I have a more advanced creative modification class up right now, and I'm working on a few other classes. Once my semester kind of winds down, I'm also a professor, so I'm teaching a graduate class right now, and that's taking a little bit of my time. Yeah, but there'll be some more knitting classes going up hopefully in the spring and summer, so if you're looking for something new, those will be coming soon. So I'm going to jump right in by talking about the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, give you a little update. A few casts back, I had an episode on how to buy yarn online, and one of the things that we talked about were sample cards or sample packs, and so many of you expressed interest in those that I decided to put one together for the Flock Farm Yarn Shop. So I have a 5 and a 7 skein sampler pack of a bunch of different yarns that are over in the shop. So we have yarn from Ridgedale Farm in Iowa. We have yarn from Five Sisters Farm in New Hampshire. We have Georgia Rustic Wools, Gulf Coast native yarn. I have some Prairie Shepherds in here, which is a Cormo blend. I have some Shorn in here, if you've never tried Shorn, which is my own yarn. So there's tons of really fun breeds and different yarns included in this sample pack. There's you can choose the 5-pack or the 7-pack, and they look a little bit like this. So you get a little project bag and a stitch marker. All your yarn is in your pack, and you get a little info card with little yarn stories and information about each of the mini skeins and the different breeds and the different flocks that they come from and all that kind of stuff. So if you were one of those people that was watching that episode and you're interested in getting your hands on a sample pack, this weekend is the last time to order one to assure that you can get one. I'm doing it as a pre-order, and they're all going to go out in the mail on Tuesday, March 15th. So March 13th, the pre-order is going to end. I'm kind of whipping together all the skeins. Spencer and I are downstairs, like winding up these minis, and we'll get them all in the mail on March 15th. So if you're interested in getting your hands on one of these sample packs and trying out some of the fun yarns from the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, those are just over in the shop, knittingthestash.com. Check out the Flock Farm Yarn little tab, and it'll take you right there, and I'll put a link down below in the show notes / description for you. So, yay! My finished object for this particular episode is actually not a sweater. I know, it's hard to believe. I do have one of my Alias sweaters in the background here because I need to remind myself to mend the sleeves. As you can see, the sleeve interacts with my computer in a very negative way, so I always have to repair my cuffs. Luckily, this is a top-down sleeve, so it's very easy. I just rip back a little ways, pick up some stitches, and finish out the knit. And I keep putting it over in this other pile and like forgetting about it. So as long as it's on the mannequin here, I'm likely to see it and actually do the fix. But this is Alias by Isabel Kramer, and it's knit up in the Isle Yarn DK Love this sweater. It's kind of a good transition piece for spring and fall. It's not quite as heavy as my other version, but yeah, I love that one. But my finished object for this week is actually my Cucullus by Mona McLeod, who is also knitting spaceships. And this is a, since we're in the middle of a blizzard, this is a definite piece of good knitting tech gear, I would say. It's basically a hood. It looks a little bit like a scuba helmet. I love that. It's basically a hood that's, not attached to any kind of jacket or sweater. So, and it has a cowl towards the bottom that kind of has a little bit of a roll to it. This has been on my in my queue for a very long time, and I meant to knit both me and my husband Spencer one before winter happened this year, but you can tell it's kind of the end of winter and I just barely making it there. So this is, I'm glad to have it, and I will put it in my box for next winter because we're always out walking. For those of you who have been watching the podcast for a long time, you know that we walk the dogs every day, rain or shine. Mini blizzard has slowed us down a little bit today. We haven't been out walking yet, but you need some actual tech to keep you warm out there. And the standard cowl hat is good, but then if the wind is blowing, you kind of want the hood, and I don't know, this just seems kind of perfect. I've seen some other, I don't know what they're called, hoods, snoods, something like that, out there, and they're all pretty interesting in terms of design. I like this one because it has, I like the shape of the hood. Not all hoods are created equal, I have to say. Some hoods just kind of sit, some really are too far forward, so you have to find your own hood, the one that you really like. And this is one that I really like the shape of. And it does have these, it's created by shaping the top of the hood here with basically like a sock where you're going back and forth and doing some decreases to create that top of the hood kind of effect. And one of the reasons I love this one is because it is lined. Yes. So you basically knit two of them, and then one becomes the lining of the other with the knit side out. Plus you've got this really cool brim that is basically, I don't want to give the pattern away, but it's kind of how you create this when you sew the lining into the main part of the hood. You get your cute little I-cord here, and then it's double layered all the way down. I'm moving it around a lot, sorry. It's double layered all the way down to here. I think you can see where I've done my tacking for the extra piece on the inside. So it's not fully lined all the way down, which is good because this fabric, which is going to tuck under your coat, it's nice to have it be a little bit thinner. Okay, I'm going to put it on. We're going to see what this looks like. You may laugh, I may laugh, but we're going to have some fun with this. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. It's like absolutely perfect in terms of warmth. I like having a little bit of a, see this little visor kind of thing? Like if you're out in the rain and the snow, which we are quite often, you need something like this. And instead of wearing a baseball hat, you've got this guy. And because it's lined, it's really pretty snug around my face. You can see I get my fingers in there if I want to, but it's, yeah. And the I-cord allows you to pull the front tighter if you wanted to, if you want to keep out even more of the weather. So I don't even know if you'd need to wear a hat underneath it. For some of the crazy walks when it's, in the teens or something, I might put a hat on underneath it, but otherwise it seems pretty good. And you can see that this bottom part kind of goes all the way down, so you'd put your coat on over it and it would really, you're just keeping all your warmth, inside because you have the hood back here and you have the way to snug it up in the front. So, Cucullus by Mona McLeod. Like I said, she's also knitting in spaceships on Ravelry. I'm not sure how active she is as a designer anymore. I've been trying to get in touch with her. But Mona, if you're out there, I'd love to talk to you because this is a really cool pattern. Let me take it off. Quick hair fix later. So I knit my Cucullus up in some yarn from the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, and this is the same yarn that was used for the Winter Rose mitts. So for those of you who are familiar with those kits that came out from Isabel Stokes, she did some beautiful mitts earlier in the season, back in the fall. It's the same yarn, so this is mostly Corriedale with a little bit of probably Teeswater or long wool mixed in. I'm trying to remember exactly which one. So it's mostly a Corriedale, which is a medium wool, really good for everyday wear, and a decent staple length. Usually in this case, I think it's like 3 to 5 inches or so. A little bit of long wool mixed in, so that gives you strength and luster. This was all hand dyed by Beth Engelbrecht Wiggins and Kathy Capel. And so I'll show you the two colors I chose were blue and sky blue, but you could put together any number of different colors. And I used 100 grams of each, so 200 grams for the full Cucullus, and I'm left with 2 little 20-gram balls, which would be perfect for, you could knit some mitts out of this or something else, some other little color work, scrappy color work. And what I thought I'd do is put this yarn on sale, just in case anybody else out there feels compelled to knit a Cucullus or a hood or any other project that you'd like to use this yarn for. Like I said, it's really soft. It's great for next to skin. This is totally comfortable right up against my face. And you only need 2 skeins to knit the Cucullus, but there are plenty of other wonderful patterns out there that you could use this yarn for. It is pretty much a heavy fingering, light DK weight, maybe a sport weight would be a good way to describe it. I knit my Cucullus up on size 4 and maybe size 5 needles, so you get a sense of the size for the patterns that you might be looking at for this yarn. So like I said, I put it on sale in case anybody else wants to join me in knitting a wonderful Cucullus hood or some other cool pattern. And there's tons of different shades up there, as you know from looking at the winter rose mitts. There's a beautiful pinks and greens and blues. There's some natural left still in stock, and yeah, it's just some really gorgeous colorways that both Beth and Kathy dyed up. So I absolutely love this sky blue colorway. I think it's just so beautiful. And actually, I kind of think you could almost turn this completely inside out and just go with sky blue on the outside if you were feeling it that day. But that's what the inside looks like in case you're interested. It's exactly the same as the other, and then I just did my tacking here so that it would stay put when I'm flipping it inside and out and washing it and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. So if you want to grab some yarn for that, it's over in the shop. And like I said, it is the mostly Corriedale. So it's Seven Sisters local farm yarn. Let's see if the camera can do this a little bit there. Yep. Seven Sisters local farm yarn in a variety of colors. And yeah, so that's up in the shop as well. And I'm really happy about my Cucullus because I am ready for this blizzard. I kind of think we might go for a walk this afternoon. Maybe. Yeah. So let's bring Spencer in and we'll talk a little bit about knitting for a cause and some of the ways that the knitting community has come together in solidarity for what's happening in Ukraine. So we have Spencer on the cast today, and we thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the knitting efforts that are happening in relation to the invasion of Ukraine.
There is some stuff going on in the knitting world.
There's a lot going on, and we thought we'd maybe this would be a good place to have compile some things. So one of the things you can do is if you go on Ravelry and you just put in the search term Ukraine, a bunch of different free patterns or patterns that are where donations are being made or patterns where they're asking you to donate in lieu of paying them. They'll pop up all over the place. So I've put together a big list of those patterns. We could talk about a couple of them.
I also, I just, before talking about this, last night, I Googled knitting in war or knitting in Ukraine or something like that. And even Google is moving stuff up to the top. So there's some interesting news stories, stuff in the UK.
Yeah, what did you find?
Some kind of cool yarn bombing stuff. I'm always interested in the yarn bombers. Yeah, I taught a class a long time ago, and students in the class were teaching me about yarn bombing. I didn't know.
They actually yarn bombed your office.
And then they yarn bombed me.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. So anyway, there's some cool yarn bombing going on. At least I've seen in the UK. And we'll put a picture on the screen of like post boxes being covered with really cool, and I feel like the where the kitty cat hats, the pussy power hats, had like a shape to them. These knits all seem to have the color, like they're all like the Ukraine, the blue and the yellow.
Blue and the yellow.
Yeah, so it's not like a single pattern going down. But instead that blue and the yellow.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see that kind of movement in the knitting community. A lot of the patterns that I'll have in the list in the show notes right below here down in the whatever you call it, the description of the cast for YouTube. They often have sunflowers in them. They have the blue and the yellow.
I saw some of that too.
Yeah, and they're all over the place. So no matter what you like knitting, there's socks and there's hats and there's mitts and there's headbands and there's pot holders. Like whatever level you're at, like there's a knit for you.
Yeah.
And the cool idea, I think, is that if knitters get together and start making these patterns and wearing them, then it's a show of solidarity for what's happening in Ukraine right now. Sometimes you can feel like you can't. Like, what can I do as a person? And sure, there are lots of things you can do. You can donate money. You can do donate, care packages.
There's a million things you can
do all kinds of things. But one of the things you can also do is just solidarity. Like, by wearing something out in public, showing that you support the people of Ukraine. So I think that's the kind of idea. Making stuff can be kind of cool.
No, I don't know anything about this. I'm so, there's like an expert, and then there's a non-expert, and then there's like way below that.
The armchair.
Yeah, like someone who just has no clue.
Amateur.
But I just read a couple things about knitting in World War II and World War I. And
I'm staring at the social history of knitting right in front of me, and it has a little bit. There's a
I don't know anything about this, but the stuff I was reading was really interesting, like shared pattern, and then some shared patterns. And now this was kind of like the stuff I read, like make socks for troops, like that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of like army green and practical designs and that kind of stuff. But the articles I read. I'm mansplaining the hell out of this. The articles I read,
but he knows it. People
were so cool because the person writing the article went back and knitted a bunch of the patterns.
Yeah.
And then some of the articles were written by gals who had done the knitting, like and then 30 years later written an article.
Yeah.
So there's I'm sure there's like a long history of handicrafts and
knitting for a cause or craft for a cause, absolutely. And I was thinking, I talked about this on an earlier podcast, but one of you wonderful people sent me a really cool link to some of the wartime knitting that was going on, and there were actually knitters who were putting codes in their knitting using pearl bumps or other things. And
for who?
For the military, like to be able to pass information along through knitting. So
pearl bumps.
I don't know if it was just pearl bumps. I think there were other things going on. But how knitting is a coded matrix pattern, so you could use that to pass along information. Yeah. So it seemed. There's a long history of the association of craft and
these the patterns I've seen for the Ukraine, pro-Ukrainian kind of resistance. Seem to have some of those messages built in, like the sunflower kind of idea, even though it's also like national flower, and then also just some like hashtag for Ukraine, like all that kind of stuff.
There's also Clara Parks who has been doing some.
If you haven't seen this stuff,
Clara Parks is amazing.
It's so cool.
She's written some of my favorite books on knitting: Vanishing Fleece, The Yarn Whisperers, Knitlandia, a stash of ones. I love them all. They're on my bookshelf.
So, someone told her to settle down a little bit.
Stop talking about politics on my knitting channel.
And she has been busting out with amazing post after post after post.
Yeah, they've been great. And then the last one, I think it's important to say, the last one was about Russia and the fact that her book was translated into Russian. So to remember that we're not just... we're talking about human beings, right? We're talking about human beings on both sides of this. And this is, it's affecting a lot of innocent civilians all over the place. And I think she did a good job of making sure that was clear, that we're not just talking about Ukrainian citizens, we're talking about Russian citizens who are affected as well. And
it seems like it could easily slip into a pro-Ukraine, anti-Russian discourse, if you're putting up a lot of Ukrainian flags and that kind of thing. But
it's important to recognize that there are human beings on all sides of this. And Corina of the Woolly Thistle has also just announced that the proceeds from her classes that go along with this vanilla sweater that she put together, you probably saw this vanilla sweater. It's been everywhere. Everyone's knitting it.
The vanilla sweater.
Yeah, it's just like this basic sweater pattern. I know, it's great. It's really great. But she just announced that her classes that go along with that sweater, all the proceeds are going to support, I think, Ukrainian refugees and Ukraine in one way or another.
Cool.
So I thought I'd jump on that bandwagon and just say my classes from Teachable.
I thought you might do that.
Yeah, but
I thought you might do that.
It's spring break this week, so teach yourself something new. So all the proceeds from my Teachable classes will go toward refugee efforts in the Ukraine, or if I can find other organizations that are on the border that are helping refugees, that the money will go there. So take a class and learn something new and support people who need help.
Melissa has a friend in Estonia who actually helped coordinate a donation for us. We gave some dough to her and she donated it, just because it's been hard to figure out if you are someone who likes to donate to different causes, it's been hard to figure out what to do, like who to give money to, or
how. A lot of it's bank transfers because of the systems and everything.
It's just tricky. So
yeah, and we're always fans of like trying to find organizations where the money is not going to the administration of the organization; it's going to actual people.
Yeah.
So
it's a tricky one.
It was nice of her to help us out with that. So we were able to actually donate directly to some of the relief efforts that are going on in Estonia.
It's such a desperate situation that I just wonder if there's anything you can do, donation wise, but we just do it anyway.
Yeah, you figure it out.
So what's the coolest design you saw of all the Ukraine themed stuff? I saw some great mitts.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That played with the color, like it was kind of like a yellow blue, but the text was inverted or whatever on each one.
Yeah, the mitts have been really
Very
beautiful because you can do a lot with the color work on the mitts, and just really, it's not. I mean, I'm fine with like the blue and the yellow, but the mitts can kind of do some color work and some ferrule, and it's really pretty.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
people knitting like really good stuff.
But some of my favorite ones were actually some socks and I think it was some mitts too, where someone just wrote, managed to write out in knitting like "Stop War." It's this basic sentiment, like we don't need war on this planet, so that seems like a nice way to be. Whoever, it's like that's like universal. That's not pro-Ukraine or anti-Russia or whatever. It's just like we don't want war. War sucks. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there's some cool stuff out there. We'll put all the links in the notes below for the Ukrainian like colored patterns that have come out that are all free or donation, or that the proceeds are going to a good cause. I'll put the links down to Corian and the Woolly Thistle for her classes on the vanilla sweater, and then I'll put my Teachable links down there. Remember, all of the proceeds for the next week will go to donations to help with the refugees in the war. So thanks for listening to us ramble on a little bit.
Thanks for having me on the cast.
Yeah, it's nice to have you.
I feel like the knitting people of the world do some pretty cool stuff, and I was reminded as I was doing a little bit of research last night to become an expert. It just seemed like there's like a long tradition of people just working with their hands to make stuff
to help people
hard times.
And as a soothing practice, and as a craft practice, and as a like actual helping other people practice,
and to resist, man.
Resistance is alive
stuff.
well in the knitting community. So
thanks for having me on the cast.
Thanks for coming on, talking about it. So it's always nice to have Spencer come on the cast. I hope you enjoyed that segment. And like I said, all of the info and links for the things that we talked about are going to be below in the description for this YouTube episode. And I wanted to mention one other Knitting for a Cause free pattern that's come out lately. This one's from Daniel ElAwar, and he and I have been corresponding a little bit, in part because he had some questions and then he was looking for a tech editor and I was trying to give him some support that way. But it also turns out that he's a fellow professor, and he's been working on this hat pattern that he came out with called the Salaam Beanie for a little while now, as far as I can tell, and it's a free pattern up on Ravelry. It's been really well received by the knitting community thus far, and he's asking in lieu of payment for people to pay it forward, basically, and donate something to mutual aid or the equivalent assistance efforts in your community. So it's yet another good knitting for a cause kind of pattern that's out there. This one is for a taki or a kufi, which is a skull cap, a hat that kind of sits pretty snugly around your head, and it's a beautiful pattern, mostly knitting and purling, though he's going to come out with a colorwork version, I believe, soon. It's in the works. I think it's in testing right now, and I think I'm going to knit one up for my dad. It looks like just the kind of hat that he would wear. So this pattern, it's out. It is up on Ravelry, and I'm not sure if there are alternate ways to get it. I bet that Daniel would happily send PDFs if people couldn't get on Ravelry for one reason or another. I know that Ravelry has presented some issues for a lot of people after they did their revamp, so get in touch with me, or you can probably get directly in touch with Daniel. I will put the link to his pattern down below, and yeah, another good knitting for a cause kind of project. And like a lot of the patterns that I'm posting below in the description and the show notes today, designers are asking that you pay it forward. Knit the object in solidarity to show solidarity or for a cause, and then pay, don't pay them, but pay it forward through donation or some other mutual aid to people around you, other human beings that you care about. So thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. I will see you in a couple of weeks with not one, hopefully, but 2 Icelandic sweaters sweaters, so it'll be a tale of two sweaters. And in the meantime, take good care and take good care of each other. Bye-bye.